Fikeo thought kindness had no price, until it did. Every morning at 5:30 a.m., she fed a frail Korean man named Hanol, who lived on a bench outside an abandoned subway station. No words exchanged, just toast and tea in the blue hour before dawn. But when she noticed the deep ligature scars around his ankles, marks that whispered of captivity, everything changed. The next night, Hanol vanished, leaving behind only a mother-of-pearl snuff box containing a micro SD card filled with evidence of a massive human trafficking operation. Then Jae-wha appeared at her kitchen table, immaculate in his tailored suit, sipping her tea like he owned the place. He knew everything: her pregnancy, her debts, her breaking point. His message was chillingly simple: return what the old man stole, or your child inherits your consequences. Fikeo's compassion had just made her a target. In case you don't know, ligature marks are forensic indicators of restraint or strangulation, visible as linear abrasions, contusions, or scars. Medical professionals are often the first to identify signs of human trafficking, which generates an estimated $150 billion annually worldwide, with victims frequently passing through healthcare systems undetected without trained intervention. And there you have it, a neo-noir thriller where one nurse's refusal to look away becomes her most dangerous weapon. If you're captivated by stories of ordinary people thrust into extraordinary darkness, where medical instinct meets criminal conspiracy and compassion becomes rebellion, you're exactly where you need to be. Smash that subscribe button because we're diving deep into more pulse-pounding narratives, protectors hiding in plain sight, women who weaponize their empathy, and high-stakes dramas where doing the right thing costs everything. Hit that like button and drop a comment. What's your situation right now? And where in the world are you tuning in from? Are you on a night shift like Fikeo, hiding from responsibilities under your covers, or escaping the chaos during your morning commute? Where are my thriller lovers listening from today? I need to know who's out there in the shadows with me. The city never truly sleeps. It just exhales differently at 5 a.m. Fikeo knew this truth intimately, the way you know the rhythm of your own heartbeat. 12 hours on her feet, the fluorescent hospital lights burning after images into her retinas, and her scrubs still smelling faintly of antiseptic and someone else's fear. She was 28 and pregnant, and so bone-tired that sometimes she forgot which version of herself she was supposed to be. But every morning, without fail, she stopped at the derelict Red Line station on Ashland Avenue. Hanol was always there, an origami figure of a man folded onto the same bench, his left side slack and useless from a stroke that had stolen half his body. 74 years old, Korean, and utterly silent. Fikeo never asked his story. He never offered it. Their entire relationship existed in the language of split sandwiches and thermoses of honey tea. This morning, she handed him the toast, multi-grain, lightly buttered, and watched his right hand tremble as he accepted it. His eyes, though, God, his eyes were different, sharp, calculating. The eyes of a man who had lived 1,000 lives before this bench became his kingdom. Eat, she said softly, knowing he wouldn't respond. He never did. But today, as she turned to leave, she noticed something that made her medical training scream. When his pant leg rode up slightly, she saw them, deep, circular scars around both ankles. Ligature marks. The kind that came from metal cuffs or industrial zip ties. The kind that meant someone had kept him tethered, like livestock. Fikeo's breath caught. Professional instinct warred with survival instinct. She was a medical assistant, not a detective. She had a baby coming in 4 months, student loans that would outlive her, and exactly $47 in her checking account until Friday. She should walk away. She always walked away. But Hanol was watching her with those terrible, intelligent eyes, and she saw it, the microscopic nod. The acknowledgement. He knew that she knew. "Who did this to you?" she whispered. He blinked once. Slowly. Then he did something he'd never done before. He reached into his threadbare coat and pressed something into her hand. A crumpled napkin. Before she could process it, he pulled his hand back and resumed eating, his face carefully blank. Fikeo walked 6 blocks before she unwrapped the napkin. Inside was nothing. She exhaled in relief, then frustration. Paranoia was making her see ghosts. She didn't notice the black sedan that had been following her since she left the hospital. She didn't see the man in the back seat studying her through tinted windows, his face illuminated by the blue glow of a tablet. Jaewa already knew everything about Fikeo Okonkwo. He just needed to decide what to do with her. Fikeo couldn't stop thinking about the scars. 3 days passed. 3 mornings of toast and tea, and those ligature marks burning in her memory, like a brand. She'd seen abuse before, worked in emergency rooms where the stories people told never matched their injuries. But this was different. Methodical. Long-term. The kind of damage that whispered of organized cruelty. On Thursday morning, Hanol wasn't on the bench. Fikeo stood in the gray pre-dawn light, thermos in hand, staring at the empty wooden slats. A pigeon pecked at breadcrumbs near her feet. Traffic hummed in the distance. Everything was exactly as it should be, except for the old man, who had become her ritual. Maybe he found shelter, she told herself. Maybe someone finally helped him. But her gut, that same instinct that had made her a good nurse, said otherwise. She was about to leave when she saw it. A sandwich wrapper wedged between the bench slats, placed deliberately where only someone looking would find it. Her sandwich wrapper. The one she'd given him Monday. Inside was a mother-of-pearl snuff box, no bigger than a matchbook, ornate and clearly expensive. Korean characters were engraved on the lid. And nestled inside, wrapped in rice paper, was a micro SD card the size of her thumbnail. Fikeo's hands shook. This wasn't a gift. This was a transfer of evidence. She pocketed the box and walked to the nearest bus stop, her mind racing. She should give this to the police. She should throw it away. She should. Excuse me, miss? Fikeo spun around. A woman in a postal uniform smiled apologetically, holding out a small package. This was left at the station for Fikeo Okonkwo. That's you, right? Your name's on your badge. The package was lightweight, unmarked except for her name in elegant calligraphy. Who left it? Fikeo demanded. The postal worker shrugged. No idea. It was just sitting on the counter this morning. Fikeo waited until she was home. Her cramped studio apartment with its flickering radiator and water-stained ceiling, before opening it. Inside was a single item, a professional photograph of her and Hanol at the bench, taken from across the street. Tuesday morning. The photo quality was pristine. On the back, in the same elegant script, "We know what he gave you." Fikeo's phone buzzed. Unknown number. The text message was brief. Don't open the SD card. Don't go to the police. Someone will be in touch. Her hands were shaking so violently she nearly dropped the phone. That night, she came home from her shift to find her apartment door unlocked. And Jaewa sitting at her kitchen table, drinking her tea like he'd been invited. Fikeo froze in the doorway, her keys still dangling from her fingers. The man at her table didn't look like a criminal. He looked like money, the kind that came with tailored charcoal suits, platinum cufflinks, and the sort of confidence that suggested he'd never heard the word no in his entire life. He was perhaps 40, Korean, with silver threading through his black hair, and hands that had never done manual labor. He sipped her chamomile tea from her chipped mug like it was vintage wine. "You're late," he said in perfect English, his accent barely detectable. "Your shift ended 40 minutes ago. Did you stop somewhere?" Fikeo's nursing training kicked in. Assess the threat, maintain calm, look for exits. but her heart was hammering against her ribs so hard she could feel it in her throat. Get out of my apartment. Sit down, Fikeo. He gestured to the chair across from him. We need to discuss your poor choice of friends. I'm calling the police. With what phone? He nodded toward her counter, where her cell phone sat in pieces, the SIM card separated and placed delicately on a napkin. Please, sit. I promise this conversation will be brief. She should run. She should scream. But something about the way he said brief suggested that running would only make things worse. Fikeo sat. My name is Jaewa Park, he said, as if they were at a networking event. And you've acquired something that belongs to my associates. A small data storage device. Mother of pearl box. Very sentimental value. I don't know what you're talking about. He smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. Fikeo Okonkwo, 28. Medical assistant at Mercy Heights Clinic, night shift. 17 weeks pregnant. Father unknown. Or rather, unwilling to be known. Student loan debt, $47,000. Rent, 3 weeks overdue. You drive a 2009 Honda Civic with a failing transmission, and you eat the same turkey sandwich every day because it's $3.50 at the bodega on 5th. Each word landed like a scalpel. You're also kind, he continued, his voice softening in a way that was somehow more terrifying. Dangerously kind. The sort of person who feeds homeless men even when you can barely feed yourself. Admirable. Stupid. But admirable. Fikeo's hand instinctively moved to her belly. Protective. Jaewa noticed. Of course he did. The old man you've been feeding is named Hanul Choi, former accountant for a very particular organization. He stole something when he ran. Something worth approximately $200 million in leverage. And you, sweet Fikeo, are now holding it. I don't have anything. The SD card. Return it, and this conversation never happened. Keep it, and... He stood, buttoning his suit jacket with practiced precision. Well, let's just say kindness is a luxury you can no longer afford. He walked to the door, paused. I'll be seeing you soon. At your prenatal appointment next Tuesday. Perhaps, Dr. Chun, 2:30 p.m. Then he was gone. Fikeo sat in the silence, her hands shaking, and realized she was crying. If you have been enjoying this story so far, kindly subscribe and hit the notification bell to ensure you're part of the inner circle for every new release. The screen might go black, but the legend continues. Don't miss the next epic story. Fikeo didn't sleep that night. How could she? Every creak of the radiator, every footstep in the hallway above, every car passing on the street below became a threat. She sat on her futon with the lights on, the mother of pearl box in her lap, trying to understand how feeding a homeless man had turned her life into a nightmare. By 6 a.m., she'd made a decision. She would go to the police, federal agents, the FBI, someone. She'd hand over the SD card, explain everything, and let the professionals handle it. She was a medical assistant, not a hero. She had a baby to protect. But when she arrived at work for her shift, there was an envelope taped to her locker. Inside were 3 items. A printout of her student loan statement, now showing a balance of $0. A lease agreement for her apartment, marked paid in full, 12 months. And a photograph of her mother's house in Baltimore, taken yesterday, with her mother visible through the kitchen window. No note. No explanation needed. Fikeo's supervisor, Denise, appeared behind her. Girl, you okay? You look like you've seen a ghost. I'm fine. Fikeo lied, shoving the papers into her bag. Well, you've got a visitor. Says, he's your financial advisor? Waiting in the staff lounge. Jaewa was sitting on the vinyl couch, scrolling through his phone. He looked up when she entered, smiled that terrible smile. Good morning. I hope you slept well. You paid my debts. I purchased your debts, he corrected. There's a difference. Your student loans, your rent, your car payments, all of it now belongs to a subsidiary company that I manage. You don't owe the bank anymore, Fikeo. You owe me. The room tilted. That's not legal. It's perfectly legal. Debt is bought and sold every day. I simply expedited the process. He stood, adjusting his cuffs. And before you think about going to the authorities, remember, I own your housing. I own your transportation. I own your financial future. One call, and you're evicted. One call, and your mother loses the reverse mortgage I just approved for her home. You're a monster. I'm a businessman. He stepped closer, and Fikeo could smell his cologne, something expensive and sharp. But I'm not unreasonable. Return what Hanul stole, and all of this goes away. You keep the paid-off debts as a thank you for your cooperation. Everyone wins. Where is he? What did you do to Hanul? The old man is being cared for. Better care than a park bench. I assure you. Jaewa moved toward the door, then paused. Oh, and Fikeo? Don't try to be clever. Don't copy the data. Don't tell anyone about our arrangement. I have people everywhere. Your co-workers. Your doctor's office. Even your prenatal yoga class. He left, and Fikeo stood there, alone, realizing that every safe space in her life had been invaded. She had 72 hours to decide, protect a stranger or protect her child. Smash that subscribe button and let us know in the comments who you are rooting for. Your support keeps these epic tales coming, so subscribe and join our community of today. Fikeo lasted 6 hours before she broke. Not because she was weak, because she was a nurse, and nurses were trained to gather information before making diagnoses. You couldn't treat what you didn't understand. And right now, she didn't understand anything except that a fragile old man had trusted her with something worth dying for. Her shift ended at 7 a.m. By 7:45, she was at the public library on Henderson Street, the one with the ancient computers that still had disk drives and SD card slots. She chose a terminal in the back corner, away from the security cameras, and slid the micro SD card into the reader with trembling hands. The folder that opened contained 847 files. Spreadsheets, bank transfers, shell company registrations, shipping manifests written in Korean, Chinese, English, Russian. But it was the photographs that made Fikeo's stomach turn. Warehouses filled with people packed like cargo, faces blurred but terror unmistakable. Children, women, men, all cataloged with ID numbers and price points. Hanul hadn't just worked for the syndicate. He'd built their entire financial infrastructure. One file was labeled architect_final.xlsx. Fikeo opened it. It was a masterpiece of criminal accounting. Every transaction traced back to legitimate businesses, shipping companies, restaurants, real estate holdings, import-export firms. The money flowed through dozens of countries, cleaned, and redistributed until it looked like honest profit. The syndicate had moved $847 million in 18 months. And Hanul had documented every single dollar. There were names too. Lee, Kozlov, Mendoza, Tanaka. But one name appeared more than any other, always in red. Park Jae-wha, Regional Director, Asset Recovery. Asset Recovery. That's what they called hunting down escaped slaves and stolen evidence. Fikeo's hands were shaking so badly she could barely control the mouse. This wasn't just data. This was a death warrant for her, for Hanul, for anyone who touched it. She should delete it. Destroy the card. Pretend she'd never seen it. But then she clicked on a subfolder labeled manifest_US_2024 and saw a shipping route from Busan to Long Beach, then by truck to Chicago. Arrival date, 6 weeks ago. Cargo listed as industrial equipment. Actual cargo. 43 people, ages 9 to 54. One of the photographs showed a girl who couldn't have been more than 12, her eyes empty in a way that made Fikeo want to scream. She ejected the SD card and sat there, breathing hard, her hand on her belly, where her own child was growing. Safe. Wanted. Free. What kind of world was she bringing a baby into? Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She'd bought a burner that morning. The text message showed a photograph. Fikeo, right now, at the library computer. Taken from across the room. Below it, curiosity is dangerous, Fikeo. Don't make me remind you what you have to lose. She looked up, scanning the library. An elderly woman reading a newspaper. A teenager with headphones. A man in a maintenance uniform emptying trash cans. Any of them could be watching. All of them could be watching. Fikeo grabbed her bag and ran. 3 days of paranoia had turned Fikeo into a ghost. She varied her routes to work, changed her schedule, stopped going to the bodega on 5th. She jumped at shadows and saw Jaewa's face in every well-dressed stranger. The SD card burned in her pocket like a live coal, but she couldn't bring herself to destroy it. Because if she destroyed it, Hanul's suffering meant nothing. It was Dr. Rashida who unknowingly gave her the answer. Fikeo, I need you to do intake on the new patient in VIP 3, she said during Thursday night shift. John Doe, transferred from an outside facility. Stroke patient, nonverbal, needs round-the-clock monitoring. Very wealthy family, very private. They're paying cash for the whole wing. Fikeo's pulse quickened. What outside facility? Doesn't say. Just says private care. Dr. Rashida handed her the chart. Run the standard neuro checks. Make sure his 4 is flowing. Easy assignment. The VIP wing was on the 4th floor, usually reserved for minor celebrities and executives who wanted privacy. Fikeo had only been up there twice in 3 years. The hallway was carpeted, the lighting warm instead of institutional fluorescent. It smelled like expensive air freshener instead of disinfectant. Room VIP 3 was at the end of the hall. Fikeo knocked softly, then entered. The man in the bed had his back to her, for lines running into both arms, monitoring equipment beeping steadily. Gray hair. Thin shoulders. Left side completely still. Mr. Doe? I'm Fikeo. I'll be checking on you tonight. She walked around the bed to check his vitals and looked directly into Hanul's terrified eyes. He was sedated, heavily from the glassy look, but conscious enough to recognize her. His right hand twitched, trying to form words his mouth couldn't make. The paralysis from his stroke was real, but this was chemical restraint. Oh my God, Fikeo whispered. She checked his chart with shaking hands. Admitted 4 days ago. The same night he disappeared from the bench. Diagnosis: acute stroke with complications. Medication list: lorazepam, haloperidol, midazolam. All sedatives. All doses high enough to keep him compliant, but not unconscious. They were warehousing him. In her own hospital. Under her nose. Hanul's eyes pleaded with her. His right hand moved infinitesimally, pointing toward the 4 bag. He wanted her to stop the sedation. I can't, she breathed. If I touch your treatment, they'll know. They'll. The door opened behind her. Fikaya turned to see a private security guard she'd never seen before, broad-shouldered and cold-eyed. Nurse? Is there a problem? No problem. Just doing my assessment. Make it quick. Mr. Doe needs his rest. The guard didn't leave. Just stood there, watching her every movement. Fikeo completed the vitals check with professional efficiency, her mind screaming. She documented everything in the chart, smiled at the guard, and walked out with her heart hammering. She made it to the staff bathroom before she vomited. They had Hanul. They had her debts. They had eyes everywhere. But they'd made one critical mistake. They'd put him in her hospital on her shift, in her care. And Fikeo knew something they didn't. She knew exactly how to make a patient disappear. Fikeo made it through her shift on autopilot, checking vitals, administering medications, charting symptoms, while her mind raced through impossible scenarios. Every plan ended the same way, with her child growing up without a mother, or worse, inheriting a debt that would follow them for life. She was washing her hands in the staff lounge when Jaewa appeared in the doorway. No knock, no announcement, just suddenly there, like a well-dressed ghost. "We need to talk about your employment," he said casually. Fikeo's blood turned to ice. "I haven't done anything." "Not yet, but you've been thinking about it." He stepped inside, closed the door. "You found our guest in VIP 3. I saw it on your face when you left his room. That expression of moral outrage mixed with helpless fury. It's quite distinctive. You're keeping him sedated. That's illegal. It's kidnapping, false imprisonment. It's private medical care," Jaewa interrupted smoothly. "Paid in full, all paperwork legitimate. Mr. Doe's family requested intensive sedation to prevent agitation during his recovery. The attending physician approved it. Everything is above board." "His family?" Fikeo's voice cracked. "He doesn't have family. You're the ones who—" "Careful." Jaewa's tone sharpened, like a blade. "Accusations require evidence. And evidence requires credibility. Who do you think they'll believe? A respected healthcare consultant with impeccable references, or a nurse's assistant with a history of financial instability who's been exhibiting erratic behavior?" Fikeo felt the trap closing around her. "What do you want?" "I want you to understand the full scope of your situation." He pulled out his phone, swiped through several screens, then turned it toward her. "This is your debt portfolio. Student loans, rent, car payment, credit cards, all transferred to Park Holdings LLC as of Monday. Total value, $63,000. He swiped again. "This is your mother's reverse mortgage. I approved a $180,000 line of credit against her home in Baltimore. She thinks it's from her bank. It's not. It's from me." Another swipe. "This is your baby's future. Projected costs for prenatal care, delivery, first year of life, roughly $35,000 with your current insurance. But insurance requires employment. And employment requires—" He looked up, eyes cold. "Cooperation." Fikeo's legs were shaking. She gripped the counter to stay upright. "You're a monster." "I'm efficient," he corrected, "and I'm offering you a choice. Return the SD card tonight, forget you ever knew Hanol Choi, and all of this goes away. The debts stay paid. Your mother keeps her home. Your baby grows up with a mother who's free. And if I don't—" Jaewa pocketed his phone. "Then I start collecting. First your apartment, then your job, one call to your supervisor about suspected drug diversion, and your nursing license is under investigation. Then your mother's house. Then your custody rights. The state takes a very dim view of homeless, unemployed mothers with no support system." He moved toward the door, paused with his hand on the handle. "You have until Sunday. Midnight. There's a drop location in your locker, an address, nothing more. Place the SD card there. Walk away, and this nightmare ends." His voice softened, almost gentle. "You're not a hero, Fikeo. You're a pregnant woman trying to survive. There's no shame in choosing survival." The door clicked shut behind him. Fikeo stood alone in the fluorescent light, one hand on her belly, and felt her baby kick, for the first time, a tiny flutter of life, demanding protection. She had 72 hours to decide who deserved to live. Subscribe to the channel right now so you never miss a single second of this cinematic journey. The story is moving fast, and you'll want to be here when the final reckoning hits. Fikeo found the address in her locker during her Friday night shift, a handwritten note on expensive cardstock tucked between her spare scrubs. Warehouse 17, Pier 9. Loading dock entrance. Sunday, 11:45 p.m. No signature. No threats. Just coordinates for her surrender. She burned the note in the staff bathroom sink, watching the ashes swirl down the drain. Denise caught her on her way to the VIP wing. "Hey, I need to talk to you about something." Fikeo's heart stopped. "What?" "Relax, it's not bad." "Well, not bad for you." Denise lowered her voice. "Administration is asking questions about the John Doe in VIP 3. The payment system flagged some irregularities. The account paying for his care is registered in the Cayman Islands, and the insurance codes don't match his diagnosis. They're sending compliance auditors Monday morning." "What does that mean for the patient?" "Means if the paperwork doesn't check out, he gets transferred to County General or discharged." Denise shrugged. "Not our problem. But between you and me, that guy doesn't look like he belongs in VIP care. He looks like he belongs in a safe house." She walked away, leaving Fikeo frozen in the hallway. Monday morning. 3 days away. If Hanol got transferred to county, he'd disappear into the system. If he got discharged, Jawa's people would take him somewhere she'd never find him. Either way, he was gone. Unless. Fikeo's mind began working through the logistics. She'd spent 3 years in this hospital. She knew the shift changes, the security rotations, the blind spots in the camera coverage. She knew which doctors signed off on discharge papers without reading them, which pharmacists didn't double-check controlled substance logs, and which orderlies would look the other way for $20. She knew how to move a patient without anyone noticing, but moving Hanol wasn't enough. She needed to get the evidence to someone who could actually use it, someone beyond Jawa's reach. That night, during her break, she used the staff computer to search for Human Trafficking Task Force Chicago. The results showed a federal hotline and a joint operation between the FBI and Homeland Security. But how could she trust them? Jawa had people everywhere. What if the task force was compromised? Then she found it. An article from 2 weeks ago about a federal prosecutor named Sarah Mendez who just won a major trafficking conviction. The article mentioned she was leading a new initiative to combat organized trafficking networks in the Midwest. More importantly, there was a quote, "We're actively seeking whistleblowers. We protect our sources." Fikeo wrote down the prosecutor's office address. Federal building, downtown. 40-minute bus ride from the hospital. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. "Your prenatal appointment went well today. Dr. Chen says the baby is healthy. 18 weeks, probably a girl. Congratulations." Fikeo hadn't had an appointment today. She checked her medical portal with shaking hands. Someone had accessed her records 4 hours ago. Not her doctor. Not her insurance. Just an anonymous login from an IP address she didn't recognize. They were inside her medical files. Inside her pregnancy. Inside her future. She looked down at the note she'd written, Sarah Mendez's address, and made her decision. Sunday night, she wasn't going to Pier 9. She was going to war. But first, she needed to save Hanol. And that meant breaking every rule she'd ever sworn to uphold. Saturday night, 11:47 p.m. The hospital hummed with its usual nocturnal rhythm. Ventilators breathing for the unconscious, for pumps clicking their measured doses. The distant wail of an ambulance siren. Fikeo had worked 100 night shifts exactly like this one. Except tonight, she was committing a federal crime. She'd spent 2 days planning every detail. The security guard rotation changed at midnight, 7 minutes when the VIP wing cameras looped their feed while the new guard logged in. The records room had a single blind spot near the server rack where IT had accidentally mounted a camera facing the wrong direction. And Dr. Okafor, bless him, always signed discharge papers during his 2 a.m. rounds without actually visiting the patient. But first, she needed to upload the evidence. Fikeo slipped into the records room at 11:52 p.m., her access badge leaving a digital trail she'd have to explain later. The room was freezing. Servers generated heat, required climate control. Her breath came out in small clouds as she moved to the terminal in the corner, the one the night shift used for medical records requests. She pulled out the microSD card, her hands steadier than she'd expected. 3 years of inserting 4 lines into dehydrated veins had taught her hands not to shake when it mattered. The card slid into the reader with a soft click. She'd already memorized Sarah Mendez's secure upload portal, an encrypted site for whistleblowers that required 3 separate authentication steps. Fikeo had set up the account yesterday using a burner phone and a coffee shop's Wi-Fi. Username, GhostNurse47. Password, a string of characters she'd never remember after tonight. The upload began. 847 files, 4.7 gigabytes of evidence. Progress bar, 2%. Estimated time, 23 minutes. Fikeo's heart hammered. 23 minutes was an eternity. 23 minutes was enough time for a security sweep, for Jawa's people to notice the network activity, for everything to fall apart. She pulled up a second window and began typing an email to Sarah Mendez. My name is Fikeo Okonkwo. I'm a medical assistant at Mercy Heights Clinic in Chicago. I have evidence of a human trafficking syndicate operating through healthcare facilities, shipping companies, and legitimate businesses. The attached files contain financial records, shipping manifests, and photographic evidence. The accountant who compiled this evidence is currently being held against his will in room VIP 3 of this hospital under the name John Doe. His real name is Hanol Choi. He needs immediate protection. The person hunting him is Park Jae-wha, listed in the files as Regional Director of Asset Recovery. He has compromised hospital staff, law enforcement contacts, and surveillance on my apartment, my workplace, and my family. I don't know who else is involved. I don't know who to trust. By the time you read this, I'll either be in custody or dead. Please protect Hanol. He risked everything to document their crimes. Please make sure his sacrifice meant something. Progress bar, 15%. The door handle rattled. Fikeo's blood turned to ice. She minimized the windows, pulled up a random patient chart, and turned just as the door opened. It was Marcus, one of the night orderlies. He looked surprised to see her. Fikeo, what are you doing in here? Lab results, she said, forcing her voice steady. Dr. Rashida needed the workup on the patient in 3 West. Marcus frowned. At midnight? Can't that wait until? Sepsis protocol, Fikeo interrupted. You know how she is about blood work. He nodded, bought the lie. Fair enough. Hey, you seen the new security guy? He's been asking about the VIP wing, wanted to know who has access. New security guy. Yeah, started tonight. Real intense. Korean dude. Expensive suit. Wait, I thought security wore uniforms. Fikeo's mouth went dry. Where is he now? 4th floor, I think. Said he was doing a walkthrough. The 4th floor. Where Hanol was. Progress bar, 19%. Marcus, I need you to do me a favor. Go to the VIP wing and tell them there's a family member asking for the patient in VIP 3. Say they're in the main lobby, getting agitated. Can you do that? But there's no one in the lobby. Just do it. Please. I'll explain later. Marcus hesitated, then shrugged. You're weird tonight, but okay. He left. Fikeo turned back to the screen. Progress bar, 23%. She had maybe 5 minutes before Marcus realized there was no family member. 5 minutes before the security guard started asking questions. 5 minutes before Jawa, because of course it was Jawa, who else would it be, realized what she was doing. Her phone buzzed. Text from an unknown number. I'm disappointed, Fikeo. I thought we had an understanding. Below it, a photograph of her apartment building. Current time stamp. A man standing at her door with bolt cutters. Another text. Your mother's house in Baltimore. Would be a shame if someone reported a gas leak. Progress bar. 31%. Fikeo's hands were shaking now. She typed back. Touch my mother, and I send copies of this to every news station in the country. The response came immediately. No, you won't. Because you're not a killer. And that's what you'd be condemning those people to. Everyone in those files. Everyone who helped Hanol. Everyone whose name appears in the documents. We have reach you cannot imagine. We have patience you cannot outlast. Progress bar, 44%. Another text, stop the upload. Erase the evidence. Walk to VIP 3 and sedate Mr. Choi with 10 milligrams of Versed. Do this in the next 3 minutes, and your mother wakes up tomorrow in her own bed, safe and ignorant. Refuse, and you bury her. Progress bar, 52%. Fikeo stared at the screen, her vision blurring with tears. 52%. Not enough. If she canceled now, half the files wouldn't transfer. Half the evidence would be lost. But her mother. The lights went out. Emergency lighting kicked in, bathing the records room in eerie red. Somewhere in the building, an alarm began to wail. The computer screen flickered, died, then rebooted to a black screen with a single line of white text. Unauthorized access detected. System lockdown initiated. The upload was gone. And Fikeo heard footsteps in the hallway outside, moving with predatory purpose toward the records room. Toward her. Fikeo didn't think. Thinking was for people who had time, and she had seconds. She ripped the SD card from the terminal, shoved it into her scrub pocket, and ran for the service exit at the back of the records room. The one that led to the maintenance stairwell, the one nobody used because it smelled like mildew and decades of institutional neglect. Behind her, the door crashed open. Stop. Jawa's voice, no longer polite, no longer smooth. Just command. Fikeo, don't make this worse. She hit the stairwell door at full speed, her pregnant belly making her clumsy, off balance. The metal stairs rang under her feet as she climbed, not down toward escape, but up toward the 4th floor. Toward Hanol. Because, if she was going down, she was taking him with her. Footsteps behind her, faster than hers, gaining. Jawa was fit, unencumbered, and absolutely relentless. By the 3rd floor landing, Fikeo could hear his breathing. There's nowhere to go, he called up. Buildings in lockdown. Every exit is covered. Every camera is watching. You're just making this harder on yourself. Fikeo burst through the 4th floor door into chaos. The power outage had triggered evacuation protocols. Nurses were moving patients toward the main stairs. Orderlies were disconnecting non-essential equipment. And someone was shouting about generator backup. In the confusion, no one noticed Fikeo sprinting toward the VIP wing. The security guard outside VIP 3 was gone, probably dealing with the emergency. Fikeo slammed through the door. Hanol was awake, terrifyingly awake. Someone had reduced his sedation. Maybe as part of the transfer plan, maybe by accident during the power surge. His eyes found hers, wide and knowing. We're leaving, Fikeo gasped, already disconnecting his 4 lines with practiced efficiency. Can you stand? He shook his head. Right side weak from the stroke, left side paralyzed. He weighed maybe 120 pounds, all bone and papery skin. Fikeo grabbed the wheelchair from the corner, positioned it next to the bed. I'm going to lift you. It's going to hurt. I'm sorry. She'd moved patients before. It was basic nursing work. But never while pregnant, never while running, never while a psychopath in a tailored suit was hunting her through a darkened hospital. Hanul's right hand gripped her shoulder. He was surprisingly strong for a man who'd been sedated for days. She got him into the wheelchair, just as the door opened. Jaewa stood in the doorway, breathing hard, his perfect hair disheveled for the first time since she'd met him. He looked at Hanul, then at Fikeo, then smiled. Not a warm smile. A knife smile. You didn't upload the files, he said. I watched the system. 52% isn't enough. The encryption requires the complete package, or it corrupts. So right now, you're holding the only existing copy of evidence that could destroy a $200 million operation. He stepped into the room, closed the door behind him. Which means you're holding my entire career. My reputation. My life. He pulled something from his jacket. A syringe, already loaded. I can't let you leave this room, Fikeo. You understand that, don't you? The hospital is full of people, Fikeo said, her voice shaking. You can't just... Power outage. Evacuation chaos. Tragic accident during patient transfer. Jaewa's voice was almost gentle. You were trying to help during the emergency. You fell down the stairs. The old man, already fragile, didn't survive the trauma. It's believable. It's sad. It's over. He moved closer. Hanul's right hand moved to his wheelchair controls. The electric motor still had battery power. With a sudden lurch, he drove the chair directly at Jaewa. It wasn't much. An old man in a wheelchair, half paralyzed, drugged. But it was enough distraction. Fikeo grabbed the four-pole and swung it with every ounce of strength she had. It connected with Jaewa's shoulder, sent the syringe flying across the room. He stumbled, more from surprise than injury. Run. Hanul's voice, barely a whisper, the first word she'd ever heard him speak. Fikeo ran, pushing the wheelchair ahead of her, into the hallway where emergency lights strobed red and nurses were shouting, and somewhere an alarm was screaming. Behind them, Jaewa's voice. Lock down the building. Patient in VIP 3 is escaping. Security to 4th floor. But Fikeo knew something Jaewa didn't. She knew every service elevator, every loading dock, every forgotten corner of this hospital. She'd worked here for 3 years, pulling double shifts, covering for absent colleagues, learning the building's secrets during long, exhausting nights. She pushed Hanul into the service elevator, the one that went directly to the loading dock, the one used for morgue transports and hazmat disposal. The doors closed just as she heard running footsteps in the hallway. Going down. The elevator descended with agonizing slowness. Hanul looked up at her, his good eye sharp with intelligence, and reached for her hand. His fingers were freezing. Why? He whispered in heavily accented English. Why? Help. Fikeo looked at this old man who'd lived on a bench, who'd been tortured and drugged and hunted, who'd still had the courage to document evil. Because no one else would, she said simply, no, that's not a cliffhanger. That's actually a resolution. The federal agents arriving saves them. Let me rewrite the ending of Chapter 10 to create a proper cliffhanger that leaves readers desperate to know what happens next. The elevator doors opened onto the loading dock. Cold night air rushed in, carrying the smell of garbage and exhaust. Fikeo pushed Hanul into the darkness, toward the street, toward freedom, and ran directly into a wall of security guards. 6 of them, all wearing Jaewa's private security company logo. From behind them, Jaewa emerged, straightening his tie, his composure completely restored. I told you, he said softly. There's nowhere to go. Fikeo's hand went to her pocket, to the SD card. The only evidence. The only proof. If they took it, 43 people in those shipping containers would never get justice. Hanul's torture would mean nothing, and she would spend the rest of her life looking over her shoulder, knowing her child would inherit a world where monsters like Jawa won. "Last chance," Jawa said, extending his hand. "Give me the card. Walk away. Forget this ever happened." Hanul's trembling hand squeezed hers. His eyes met hers, and in them she saw something that broke her heart. Permission. Permission to save herself. Permission to choose her baby over him. The guard stepped closer. Fikeo made her decision. She pulled the SD card from her pocket and swallowed it. The shocked silence lasted exactly 2 seconds. Then Jawa's composure shattered. "What did you just get her to the clinic?" Now. Hands grabbed her. Someone yanked Hanul's wheelchair away. Fikeo felt herself being dragged back toward the hospital entrance, toward some private room where they could pump her stomach, cut the evidence out of her if they had to. But as they hauled her past the parking garage entrance, she saw headlights. Multiple vehicles, moving fast. Black SUVs. Government plates. And stepping out of the lead vehicle, a woman in a FBI jacket. Sarah Mendez. Fikeo's 52% upload had been enough after all. Federal agents. Nobody move. Everything exploded into chaos. Shouting, running, the metallic click of weapons being drawn. Jawa's guards scattered. Someone threw Fikeo to the ground, and she felt her belly hit the concrete, felt a sharp, wrong pain. "Officer down. We need medical." But Fikeo wasn't an officer. She was just a nurse who'd made the wrong choice. Or maybe the right one. She couldn't tell anymore because the pain was spreading and the world was going dark, and the last thing she saw was Hanul's wheelchair, empty, tipped on its side. And Hanul himself, gone. As if he'd never existed at all. If you have enjoyed this story so far, kindly subscribe and hit the notification bell to ensure you're part of the inner circle for every new release. Tell me your favorite part of the story and why you think it's the best. I'd be in the comments section watching and replying to all your messages.